At our number 10 spot, we have the Candy Lady. In the early 1900s, children in the rural town of Terrell, Texas started to go missing. Some of the residents blamed it on the Candy Lady. The story says that she would go around leaving candy on children's home windows just before bedtime. As the parents began to fall asleep, it'll encourage children to grab the candy, but as they try to grab it, the lady grabs them and feasts on their sugar-laden blood until there isn't any left. A farmer allegedly found rotten teeth on his farm and later found the body of a boy with his pockets stuffed with candy. Many people believe that Candy Lady is in fact real and went by the name of Clara Crane. Clara Crane was accused of poisoning her husband back in 1895 with poison-laced caramel candies. But that's not all. 5 years before the incident, Crane's 5-year-old daughter passed away from unknown causes, which many believe that she poisoned her daughter as well. At our number 9 spot, we have La Llorona. This legend originates from El Paso, Texas. Almost all Latin cultures know the story of La Llorona, and the people of El Paso are no exception to that. La Llorona directly translates to the weeping woman, which perfectly describes the behavior of this malevolent spirit. She is said to haunt the riverbanks of the Rio Grande, where she is searching for her 2 children whom she had already drowned in that very river. Now there are many iterations of the story, but I'll just mention the most popular one. The legend goes that a lady found her boyfriend with another woman. After a heated argument between the two, the woman was heartbroken and wanted to get revenge, so she took the children and proceeded to drown them in the Rio Grande River in Texas. It's also said that when she was done throwing her children into the river, she went back to her lover's home with a bloody wedding gown, showing her she would do whatever it took to be with him. It's said to be the reason why many children disappear in that very area, and she supposedly takes other children to fill the void she lost. So if you're in the area, beware of a woman weeping in a wedding gown who is sitting by the Rio Grande. At number 8 spot of El Cucuy. This creature is known as South Texas' official boogeyman. There are many versions of El Cucuy since it already originates in Mexico as well. It's said that this monster kidnaps children who misbehave and takes them back to the mountain where he lives to devour them. He appears as a hairless creature with an enormous head that dwarfs his spider-like body. He also has these large red glowing eyes, red ears to hear everything, and razor-sharp fangs and claws to accompany that. The origin of El Cucuy goes that a man was suffering with tuberculosis. Desperate to cure himself, he fetched an African witch doctor. The doctor told him to drink a child's blood, but as he did, he started to turn into the monster described. Ever since, he has a never-ending thirst for children's blood. At our number 7, we have the Screaming Bridge. In North Arlington, Texas, 50 years ago, there was a group of teenage girls driving home from a football game. The bridge was designed to only fit 1 car at a time, and I know, what a dumb bridge, but this was in the past and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. The girls weren't paying attention and went full speed over the bridge until a car with no headlights struck them head on, with all of the girls passing away. Some say when they go near the bridge, they can hear the distant screams sounding like the girls before they passed away. As well, if you go over the bridge and look down at the water below, you can see the tombstones of all the girls with their names and birthdays written on it. At number 6 spot, we have the Goatman's Bridge. Why are there so many haunted bridges? Like, I don't get it. But in Denton County, Texas, lies the Goatman's Bridge, which was built in 1884. This bridge is supposedly haunted by the ghost of the Goat Man. The story goes that a black goat farmer named Oscar Washburn was renowned for quality meat, milk, and cheeses, and then he moved with his family just north of the bridge. Except when he arrived in this area, he was instantly the target of racial hate crime. The racist townfolk came together and burned down the farm with the family inside. They then threw Oscar's body over that very bridge. Now he appears as a half goat, half man humanoid that reeks of decaying flesh. If you knock on the bridge 3 times, it said that you can summon the Goat Man, but now others use this area for rituals and other supernatural activities. Right in the hump of our list, we have the Lady of White Rock Lake. The lake is located in Dallas, Texas, and many visitors claim that they spot a drenched young woman who appears crawling out of the water or asking to fetch a ride. When many people offer her this ride, she disappears out of thin air and leaves a bloody, wet seat mark and a terrified driver. Even though many of the drivers were scared to their core, some decide to go to the address given to them by the girl. When they arrive at the door, they're all met by the same man who tells them that his daughter had gone sailing and never came back. Many people believe the story is inspired by the 1953 book Neiman Marcus, Texas, the story of the Proud Dallas Store, and according to the book, Malloy and his wife are driving home late one night in East Dallas when a young, beautiful blonde girl ghost appears on the road. Her elegant dresses is naturally wet and she seems to be in trouble. She gives them an address on Gaston Avenue and asks them to be taken home, but as they drive, she disappears, leaving only a mark. At our number 4 spot, we have the Lake Worth Monster. You just learned about the Goatman, right? Well, this is basically the Goatman, but of the lake. This monster terrorized the people of the town for years, with many describing the creature as being 7 feet tall, around 300 pounds, long-necked, flop-eared, pot-bellied, covered in white scales and hair. I swear I just described Shaquille O'Neal. The monster was supposedly captured on camera, but you guys be the judge of that one. It looks like a 2-year-old drew on a camera lens on a potato with a crayon and then took this photo, but who knows, it might be real. This beast was inspired by Sally Ann Clark's book, The Lake Worth Monster of Greer Lake, Fort Worth, Texas. In the book, the monster jumped on the hood of someone's car and shook up the car so badly that they got caught in a bad accident. The people described it being a 7 feet tall being covered in scales and fur and resembled a half goat and half man. Pretty scary if you ask me. All the way at our number 3 spot, we have the Donkey Lady. The Donkey Lady of San Antonio, Texas dates all the way back in the late 1800s. The Donkey Lady was once a beautiful woman with children and a husband, but one day in a rage, the husband burned down the house with the children and wife still inside. The children passed away, but however, the wife managed to survive, but suffered greatly from this. Her toes and fingers would be fused together in a Hoove-like way, and her face was melted and sagging, inspiring the Donkey Lady name. There's a bridge in South San Antonio named the Old Applewhite Bridge, or the Donkey Lady Bridge. This is the bridge she went to crown after this horrible tragedy. Now it's said if you go to the bridge after midnight and call out the Donkey Lady, she will appear just before you. Some have claimed she had run at people who call out her name, or sometimes just stalks in the forest line waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. At number 2 spot, we have the girl who danced with the devil. The story takes place in the 1970s in San Antonio, Texas, with a young Mexican girl named Rosa. One day the girl wanted to attend a dance at a nearby nightclub named the El Cabroncito. However, the parents were very strict and didn't want her anywhere near the nightclub. Despite their orders, she snuck out of her house and traveled all the way to the nightclub where she could finally have her dance. At the club, Rosa was approached by this very tall, charming, and well-dressed man who asked her permission to dance. When they began dancing, Rosa was terrified when she discovered he had goat hooves instead of feet. When she screamed in terror, people in the club started to chase him out, but as he got close, he vanished out of thin air, leaving a trail of smoke and the smell of sulfur. Devil activity if that wasn't enough. It's said that the area surrounding the nightclub still smells of sulfur to this day. At a number 1 spot with El Muerto. El Muerto, otherwise known as the Headless Horseman of Texas, is a Texas legend that dates all the way back in the mid-1800s. The story goes that 2 rangers, Creed Taylor and William Bigfoot Wallace, were hunting a criminal known as Vidal along the Mexican border. Vidal had been wreaking havoc all across the state of Texas, so when the ranger caught them, they wanted to set an example. So they did just that and cut his head clean off. They then tied his head to the saddle and sent his horse with the headless body running off into the night. Now the horse continued to explore the region with its headless rider. The tale of El Muerto began to grow after it was reported that both had been seen numerous times and that gunshots had no impact on either of them. Spotting El Muerto was thought to foreshadow bad luck because everyone who claimed to have seen him was struck with a series of bad luck and poor health following it.
Starting off this countdown at number 10, the Meg. Researchers have pinned the date of the megalodon's extinction to about 2.6 million years ago, roughly when the great white shark was just becoming established. However, a doctor pointed out that the megalodon likely lived in water no more than 200 meters deep, in and around coastal areas. We would, she says, have noticed something of the megalodon's size if it was swimming off our shores, but what if that's not where it's living? Explorers began to probe the Mariana Trench in the late 1800s using rudimentary equipment, but it was impossible to get the full picture of the trench without sending someone down. That's only happened once in history. In 1960, a researcher and US Navy lieutenant took a Navy submarine into the depths. Due to the pressure, they couldn't stay very long, but when they turned on the submarine's floodlights, they were shocked to see fish. Until then, it was thought that no creature could live in such a harsh environment. So who's to say the Meg couldn't live down there?
Over the years, reports of megalodon sightings have emerged all over the internet. A lot of them claim that these giant sharks never went extinct, that they've just been hiding in the deepest part of the ocean, the Mariana Trench.
Now at number 9, new whale. In 2016, marine biologists studying the Mariana Trench heard a strange sound of unknown origin and started recording. Although the recording is only a few seconds long, experts detected a slightly metallic quality to it, and many speculated that the noise was not natural. After months of analysis, however, the scientists believed they found the source of the noise. It's currently theorized that the sound, which marine biologists call a biotwang, is the low-frequency call of a new type of baleen whale. However, that's just one theory. Others say it's still a whale, however it's got shark-like teeth and has mutated into something unimaginable. Here at number 8, sea devil anglerfish. If a fish has the word devil in its name, it's a safe bet that it's going to be freaky, and sea devil anglerfish does not disappoint. It features a whole list of interesting, strange characteristics. As its name strongly hints, this this is a fish that would have swum up straight from hell, with its weird body, razor-like teeth, and cold death stare. Although they're bizarre and scary looking, at least they're not huge. Females generally top out at 8 inches long, and the males are much smaller, at maybe an inch long or so. As an anglerfish, the sea devil doesn't dart after its prey. Instead, it has a protrusion from its forehead that dangles a glowing lure to attract unlucky animals. With its huge gaping jaws, the sea devil can actually devour creatures larger than itself.
We believe that this is the first video footage ever made of this species alive and at depth. Eyes of this angler are quite small. In their dark habitat, anglerfish rely more on feeling the movements of other animals in the water around them than on vision. The tiny pale dots you see along the sides of the fish and on its head are organs very sensitive to the slightest movements, and they function very effectively.
Now coming in at number 7, goblin shark. The goblin shark is a rare species of shark. Its unusual and creepy appearance is often described as fossil-like. It has pink-toned skin and a distinctive snout shape. It is elongated and flat, with a protruding jaw and skinny, incredibly sharp teeth. They can grow to be about 10 to 13 feet in length, and they are rarely seen by human beings. It's still unclear what the unusual snout is for, but the older they get, the deeper they dive.
Most goblin sharks are 10 to 12 feet long, but they can grow much bigger.
Here at number 6, telescope octopus. The telescope octopus is a transparent 8-armed octopus that is almost entirely colorless. Their arms are the same size, and they are the only octopus to have tubular eyes. It is incredibly unusual to observe and was originally documented by Dr. William Evans in 1885. The octopus is a rare species, meaning there is little that scientists and the general public know about the marine creature, but it's believed to be a close relative of the glass octopus. These eyes provide a wider peripheral vision so that the octopus can see predators and prey alike. Those eyes can also rotate. Talk about scary. Halfway at number 5, fang-toothed fish. These fish could be straight out of a horror movie and are named after their scary teeth that, in relation to their body size, are the largest in the ocean. Special pouches on the roof of its mouth prevent the teeth from piercing the fish's brain when its mouth is closed. Fang-toothed fish do not have good eyesight, and they are believed to hunt by literally bumping into their prey, sensing vibrations and movement in the water. Now at number 4, deep-sea hatchetfish. There are a lot of odd-looking fish in the sea, but not many of them resemble humans' hand tools. The deep-sea hatchetfish resembles a silvery swimming hatchet. There are more than 40 species of hatchetfish. All of them have ridiculously skinny bodies, and many of them have shiny scales too, which adds to the metallic hatchet-like appearance. They are small fish, and even the biggest types to grow only to about 6 inches long. Their delicate looks contradict their serious ruggedness, because these fish are found in depths pushing nearly 5,000 feet. Hatchetfish have bioluminescent bodies, and they can alter the brightness of their glow depending on how much light is filtering from above. In doing so, they're counter-illuminating their bodies in a clever camouflage technique. Their dim, self-produced light reduces their silhouettes, making it much more difficult for predators to spot them from below. Now at number 3, comb jellyfish. The comb jelly is a beautiful oval-shaped animal with 8 rows of tiny comb-like plates that it beats to move itself through the water. As it swims, the comb rows break up light to produce a shimmering rainbow effect. Comb jellies are gelatinous creatures with luminous body structures as they diffract any light that falls upon them. They use their comb-like plates to move around in the water. While they please the eyesight, these underwater marvels are vicious predators, even attacking their own kind sometimes. Some may be as tiny as a few millimeters, ranging up to nearly 5 feet long.
Found around 3,000 feet down are the comb jellies. That's light refracting off thousands.
Here at number 2, frilled shark. The frilled shark was discovered in the 19th century by a German who studies fish. It is often referred to as a living fossil due to its eerie appearance and the shape of its mouth. The shark has an eel-like body that's dark brown and gray in color, and the articulation of the jaws to the head. The shark derives its name from 6 rows of frilly gills that grace its body, which grows up to 6 feet long. Just as notably, the shark wields more than 20 rows of wicked, trident-shaped teeth that will tear into any bit of flesh that passes near them. Frilled sharks probably spend most of their lives near the ocean's bottom, and they like waters more than 4,000 feet deep. On the rare occasions that people snag them and bring them up to the surface, the sharks almost always perish immediately, making it very difficult for people to observe their behavior and life cycles. For years, many people assumed that frilled sharks swam and hunted like eels. Now coming in at number 1, zombie worms. Now I know what you're thinking, oh well, how can a worm be scary? Well, let me tell you. Zombie worms are also known as osedox. The word osedox means bone eater in Latin and refers to the worm's ability to dig into and eat bones from whale carcasses. They do so in an attempt to reach lipids enclosed in the bone. They use special root tissues for bone burrowing. So if you ever come near one of these things, I suggest getting as far away as possible. Starting off this countdown at number 10, the Singapore Stone. Did you know that Singapore has its very own Hercules? Known as Bedang, a poor fisherman lived his humble life by the Singapore River. When he realized a water djinn had been stealing his fishes, he set a trap to catch the spirit red-handed. He then confronted the captured spirit, who promised to grant his wish in return for its release. Bedang proceeded to wish for superhuman strength and was soon appointed court warrior by the Sultan of Singapore. Warriors from far and wide started swarming in to challenge the strong man, including India's Wadi Bijaya. The two dueled in a series of contests, and the last one saw them lifting a massive rock and throwing it towards the Singapore River. The rock was discovered years later at the spot where it was said to have landed, and not just that, there was an inscription on it, probably to commemorate Bedang's achievement. However, only a fragment of the rock survives today. And as it's been said, the Brits blasted it to pieces in 1843. While it's housed in the temporary closed National Museum of Singapore, you can still see it online.
Barely a meter wide, the Singapore Stone is a fragment of a large sandstone slab that once stood at the mouth of the Singapore River. Blown up in 1843 to widen the passageway of the river mouth, this fragment is believed to be over 1,000 years old.
Number 9, Red Hill. Red Hill has a bloody tale behind its name. As strange as it sounds, it all started with a swordfish infestation, where the sea creatures attacked unsuspected villagers and fishermen by the shore. An idea came out of using banana tree trunks as a barricade to trap the swordfishes. He brought this up to the Sultan, who granted permission to proceed. The brilliant plan worked, earning him the respect and admiration of the villagers, but not the Sultan, who soon became envious of the attention. Out of jealousy, he ordered his men to rid the boy, even taking his life by any means necessary. And so they did. The poor boy's blood flowed down the hill where he lived, staining it blood red. And so that's how it's said it's got its name. Number 8, Kusu Island. An island with an interesting backstory is Kusu Island, also known as a sacred site. The island is home to a Chinese temple and 3 Malay shrines. But do you know where it gets its name from? Kusu means turtle in Hokkien, and legend has it that a giant turtle transformed into the island to save stranded sailors and fishermen, victims of the stormy weather. The sailors and fishermen returned the following year and the year after with offerings to show their gratitude. From then on, people head down on the 9th month of the lunar calendar to pay their respects. Number 7, Radin Ma. Radin Ma is the name of the area between Teluk Bangla, Bukit Permi, and Jalan Bukit Merah. Sorry if I mispronounced any of that. As well as a couple of known landmarks around the city. It's also the name of a Javanese princess, Radin Ma Ayu. Her father was a warrior prince, her mother was a commoner, and their marriage was condemned by the Sultan. One day, while the warrior prince was away on an expedition, the Sultan ordered his men to burn their house down, killing his wife. Radin, however, was saved by a loyal servant. Upon his return, the devastated warrior prince left the Javanese kingdom for Temasek with his baby daughter. Soon after their arrival, the Sultan of Temasek arranged for the warrior prince to marry his daughter. Similar to the tale of Cinderella, Radin's new stepmother wasn't a big fan of hers. The plot thickens when the adult Radin was to marry her stepmother's nephew, whom she refused. Not liking her decision, he attacked her main man in life, her father. In an attempt to save him, Radin was hurt in the process, receiving a stab in the heart. It's said that her body is laid to rest at the foot of Mount Faber, where there's a shrine in respect of her loyalty. Number 6, Island of Death. Tlaumati, or Island of Death, was a former name of Sentosa. While no one knows exactly just how the island got its morbid name, it's been said that the island was once a place of piracy and bloodshed. Other reasons behind its name include the location of the island, which was adjacent to Pulau Brani, which was the burial ground for many ancient Malay warriors. Then there's a tale about a deadly outbreak called the Belakang Mati fever in the late 1840s, which almost wiped out the original Bugis settlers on the island. In 1972, Pulau Mati was renamed as Sentosa, or Peace and Tranquility, leaving its past behind. Today, it's a beach resort known as the State of Fun. Halfway number 5 is Singapura. Sang Nila Utama, or Sri Tribhuwana, was once the ruler of the Shivajaya Empire at Sumatra. According to legends, he went on an expedition in the late 13th century and discovered an island with a white sandy shore. After learning that the place was called Temasek, Sang decided to cross the waters to reach this newly discovered land. However, a storm appeared out of nowhere and nearly swallowed the boat. In a desperate attempt, Sang threw his crown into the turbulent waters. The weather in the sea immediately became calm, and the crew reached Teluk Blangah safely. As they landed, a strange beast was spotted from afar. Upon hearing that it was a lion, Sang was overjoyed and decided to name the island Sigapura, or Lion City. The discovery was said to have happened in and around AD 1297, and Sang went on to rule for 48 years before his passing. His palace and burial ground was located on top of Bukit Larangang, or Forbidden Hill. Number 4. Sisters Islands. Lying south of Sentosa, Sisters Islands refer to Pulau Sabar Darta and Pulau Sabar Lut. Many years ago, there was a pair of sisters, Mina and Lena, living by the southern coast of Singapore. Being very attached to each other, the sisters vowed to marry 2 brothers so that they could live together always. However, one night, Lena ran into a group of pirates by the sea. Stunned by her beauty, the pirate chief was determined to marry Lena. When the dawn broke, the pirates came and abducted Lena to their ships. Weeping over the loss of her dear sister, Mina came swimming after the boats. The stormy waters were merciless, and she was doomed eventually. In a desperate attempt, Lena broke free and dived into the sea. The next day, a pair of islands appeared where the sisters had drowned. They were named Sisters Islands by the villagers in memory of the 2 girls.
And legend has it that the next day, after the storm had subsided, Sisters Islands had appeared in the position where the 2 sisters were last seen.
Number 3. Underwater City. Legend has it that Sang Nila Utama was the child between an adventurer king and a princess of an underwater kingdom, like we talked about before. Supposedly, Sang's father Raja had a glass case created for him to descend into the sea because he was curious about what lies beneath the calm waters. He sank into a country called Dika and was greeted by a race of men, and was later taken to meet the ruler of this underwater wonderland, and that's exactly how he met Sang's mum, Princess Mathabu Labari. This world under the sea, however, is scarcely ever mentioned in history books. Number 2. The Merlion. One night, the villagers living by the southern coast of Tesamek were awakened by the howling winds and crashing waves. The dark clouds blocked out the lights of the moon and the stars, turning the world in complete darkness. It was as though the island of Tesamek would be sunk by the raging sea. The terrified villagers got down on their knees and prayed. During this moment, a bright light was observed emerging from the southern waters. A massive creature, half lion, half fish, roared in anger. The battle between the fierce mythical animal and nature was intense, as the sky was filled with flashing lightning. The villagers had never witnessed such terrifying phenomenons before. After some time, the winds began to die down. The waves subsided and the sky started to clear. The gigantic sea beast had won the battle against nature. As it claimed its victory, it stood proudly on Sentosa. By morning, the Merlion had retreated into its waters, leaving behind a bright, colorful trail. Number 1. Ghostly passengers. This story originates with taxi drivers, specifically ones who have had the eerie experience of picking up late-night passengers who ask to be dropped off at a cemetery. Usually, the protagonist in the story is a beautiful young woman waiting on a remote road for a taxi. Once she's in the taxi, she doesn't speak again and wordlessly hands the driver money when she arrives at her destination. In the morning, when the driver looks at the money, it's hell notes. Money burnt as an offering have replaced the Singaporean bills.
At a number 10 spot, we have Janet's ghost. According to legend, Janet worked as a young Chinese nurse in Kuching's public hospital. According to the story, she vanished sometime in the late 1960s. This occurred when kidnappings in the city were on the rise. The only things that anyone had determined was that the kidnappings might have been related to the building of Satok Bridge. The territorial spirits would be annoyed if the bridge's constructions were delayed. To appease them, human sacrifices had to be made. Apparently, they preferred to sacrifice virgin girls, but only to use their heads. This meant they would be decapitated and their heads would be embedded in the concrete pillars to strengthen the bridge. Eventually, they found Janet's headless body, confirming the police's theory. Her grieving parents went on to bury her in a red dress and red shoes. So many people believe that if a woman passes away wearing all red, then she will return as a vengeful spirit.
Now at number 9, Pontianak. The word Pontianak is a combination of 3 words: Pana, lady, Mati, dead, and Anak, child. Pontianak takes after a lady who lost her baby during childbirth. She is often dressed in white and has long black hair, and is known to seek revenge against men. Many have said they have encountered this bitter being while on the road in the dark hours. When the Pontianak is near, dogs howl and you can hear a baby crying, and you smell the scent of jasmine flowers out of nowhere. That's how you'd know this vengeful creature is in the area. During the day, the Pontianak hides in banana trees, and she starts her hunt when there's a full moon.
At a number 8 spot, we are the Crack Highway. This Malaysian highway is said to be the world's most haunted highway. It is a 70-kilometer long interstate highway that connects Kuala Lumpur to Genting Highlands. The amount of paranormal reports from this highway alone is enough to make someone take a longer detour instead. The first of these incidents happened when a couple and their baby were returning one night from vacation. The car suddenly breaks down on the side of the road, and as he looks for someone to help, he notices the highway is completely empty. So he walks to find the closest nearby phone booth to call for for help, but the man never ended up returning. After a few hours of waiting, his wife calls the police, but when they arrive, they tell her to step out of the vehicle and not look behind them. After walking a distance away, she turns around to see her husband's headless body being devoured by a banshee-like creature on the top of their car. As well, on Crack Highway, if you find yourself stuck behind a yellow Volkswagen Beetle, get away from it. This vehicle is known to stalk drivers and cause them to get into fatal accidents, so drive extra safe when you're in Malaysia.
Now at number 7, Reddit story. The story is posted by someone on Reddit who lives in Malaysia. I saw a ghost when I was like 9 or 10 years old. It was early in the morning, about 6:30 a.m., and I was having breakfast alone in the kitchen when this rotten face, twice as big as a normal head, reared from a corner that led to the back door. One of its eyes was hanging out of its socket. There were holes in its cheeks, stuff oozing out, worms, etc. I was stunned for a good 5 seconds staring at it, and then I snapped and ran upstairs and got my dad. My dad came down, and of course that thing was gone, and my dad showed me the back door was locked. We moved out from the house about 5 years after that, and only then everyone shared their story. My mom said a neighbor saw a hairy leg as big as a coconut tree trunk behind the house. My brother said his friends saw some people dancing in the vicinity while carrying a coffin.
At our number 6 spot, we have the Orang Minyak. The Orang Minyak, or the oily man, is a creature that takes the shape of a man that is covered in a thick, murky black oil. It comes out at the darkest time of night and when it's almost impossible to see it. It snatches young women in rural villages when they're sleeping, and this is why many fear oil spills in the country, oddly enough. It can shapeshift into oil to slip through cracks in the walls and the floor, so basically there's no place to hide from the Orang Minyak. In Malaysia's past, a young woman were told to wear clothing that was worn by a man so that this creature couldn't catch their scent. Keeping a mirror nearby is a must because this creature does not like its own reflection. This became such a big urban legend that some girls would cover their rooms in complete mirrors, but in my opinion, that is just as creepy as this creature.
Halfway at number 5, Villa Nabila. Some people will be able to connect this location with the 2015 Malaysian horror film by the same name. As the legend goes, a house help, in a fit of intense jealousy, killed all the family members residing in this villa. She buried their bodies all over the premises, but surprisingly, even the investigators could not locate the remains. The spot came into focus once again in 2013 when 23 teenagers were reported to have gone missing at Villa Nabila.
At a number 4 spot, we have Pulau Jerijak. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that. Pulau Jerijak is a small island located alongside Perang Island, and if the shark-filled waters wasn't enough for you to avoid this place, then maybe the ghosts of former prisoners may. This island mainly served as a place to keep the sick, the poor, and the bad. For example, people suffering from leprosy and tuberculosis were thrown onto this island to isolate themselves from others. Reports claim that over 1 million people were crammed on this island to quarantine, and over 5,000 people passed away. Then in 1969, the island transformed into a prison, except this prison would contain those arrested under the emergency ordinance, which is basically people detained without trial. So you already know this gets bad. This prison was very inhumane. Prisoners would be tortured often and left malnourished, which would later claim for their lives. Now it's said that the island contains the spirits of those left to pass away there. And since Malaysia is attempting to make this a tourist spot, many people claim to hear the screams of those tortured on this island, or others fall into a great sickness after coming from the island.
Now at number 3, Pudu Jail. Jails have a history of unfulfilled wishes of freedom, much like the spirits that cannot transcend to the afterlife. Constructed during the British regime, the Pudu Jail confined over 2,000 prisoners of war during the Second World War. Visitors have experienced unnaturally hot and cold spots in various spots of the prison. The execution chamber often bursts into screams, even though it was apparently empty. Despite the fact that it was demolished in 2009 and a commercial development took its place, strange activities are still reported occasionally.
All the way at our number 2 spot, we have the First World Hotel. Oddly enough, this obviously isn't the first hotel in the world, but the largest one in the world, regardless of the name. It is located in the Genting Highlands in the Titiwangsa Mountains. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that again. This 7,351 room hotel is specifically a casino resort, and over the past 20 years of its existence, it claimed the lives of enough people for anyone to avoid this place altogether. Since many people who go there are gamblers, a lot of the people who passed away there are those who took their own lives due to the issues associated with gambling. Odd thing is that people report that the most paranormal activity lies on floor 21, except when you try to visit the floor, you'll notice there's no button for it on the elevator. Guests now report everything you would hear from a gambler who lost big. They hear crying, wailing, and loud footsteps when no one is around them. Reports of poltergeists occur in the rooms and corridors at night, and in some cases, some rooms are shut down because many guests would fall ill in one or after staying in the room.
Now coming in at our number 1 spot, Pokong. In a traditional Malay funeral, a body is wrapped in a white cloth before it is prayed over and laid to rest. According to the Muslim funeral practice, a body has to be tied at several places to keep the cloth in place. When the wrapped body is laid into the grave, the knot keeping the coffin cloth in place is usually removed. Malays believe that after death, the soul of this body will stay on earth for 40 days. Pokong is a mummy-like appearance and is said to be a deceased body covered in burial dirt. If the knot is not removed and stays on beyond 40 days, the body could turn into a ghost and literally jump out of its grave. Only when this knot is taken away will the ghost stop haunting people. People believe that this type of ghost tends to disturb or meet those who have weak spirits. It is common knowledge among Asians that this ghost can move as fast as the jumping vampire. Its leap ranges from 50 meters per jump to over 100 meters. This energetic spirit is believed to be able to roll around and move as fast as a speeding car, and is usually found in villages wandering around.
At a number 10 spot, we have the Torch Lake Monster. This one is pretty much well known all over Michigan, but for those who don't know, the tale of the Torch Lake Monster dates back to the early 1960s and 70s. Obviously, it takes place in Torch Lake, which is located in North Michigan, and it also is the second largest lake in the state. A fisherman and coach by the name of Dave Foley is credited with spotting the creature first and telling the stories of it since he worked by the lake for a while. Legend goes that the giant creature has a lizard's body, the head of a cat, one brown eye, and one blue eye, along with slimy green skin. The lake is approximately 285 feet deep, which makes what lies underneath much more scary and worrisome. Nighttime is when this creature is said to arise from the depths. At this time, many swimmers and boats go missing, only to wash ashore with no evidence of its demise. At a number 9 spot, we have the singing sands of Beat Gris. Located just past Lac La Belle, Michigan, is a beautiful white sandy beach known as Beat Gris. In a direct translation, this means gray beast, and that's because a large gray creature was said to have inhabited the area many years ago, but that's not even the story I'm going to talk about. Local legends claim that the pure white sand of the beach sings by pressing down your palms on it, or it barks when you strike it. The sound is said to be the voice of a Native American maiden who lost her lover when he drowned in the Great Lakes, and now she calls him on shore. The sand is said to lose its magical singing power when it's removed from the beach. Now visitors claim to hear the singing sounds, but as many try to bring the sound back home, they are met with years of unlimited bad luck, which lead many to bring it back to the beach to allow it to sing again. Other than sand that makes sounds, at a number 8 spot with the Belle Isle's Lady in White. In Detroit, Michigan, there's an island called Belle Isle. This 982-acre island is used for picnics, hikes, and home of the only marble lighthouse. Other than that, everything else on this island is shrouded in mystery and up for speculation. Legend of the island follows the story of a chief's daughter and a haunting bridge. The chief was concerned that his daughter's beauty would attract vast amounts of suitors, so to combat this, he made a deal with the snake goddess of the island. The chief asked the goddess to protect his daughter. The goddess would agree, but not for nothing. She would ask for the daughter to live out the rest of her days on the island to protect it, never being able to leave it. And to this day, the daughter is said to stay on this island and walk it, with many visitors reporting that she would try to lure them into the forest by telling them that she is looking for someone and just needs help. She supposedly takes her victims to the bridge to drown them, and it's said that if you go on this bridge and honk 3 times, she will appear just before your eyes. At number 7 spot with the Nain Rouge. It's said that since the city of Detroit was founded in Michigan, bad luck has befallen the area. This is all because of the devilish red imp known as the Nain Rouge had cursed the entire city. Local folklore suggests that the Detroit's founder, Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac, was warned by a fortune teller that he would come face to face with the Nain Rouge and to treat him with the most utmost respect and attention. Except this information came straight this ear and right out the other, because when he finally met with this creature, he hit it with his crane and told it to stay out of his way. This is when the angry Nain Rouge cursed the city of Detroit and Cadillac. Shortly after this, Cadillac would lose his fortune and move back to France, but misfortune still occurred in the city. It's said that in all disastrous events that happened in Detroit, the Nain Rouge could be spotted just before all of them. For example, in 1763, 50 British soldiers perished from Native Americans, after which the Nain Rouge could be seen dancing in the aftermath in joy. Then in the surrender of the war in 1812, the Nain was blamed again for its presence. It also been seen during Detroit's riots of 1967 and 1976's ice storm that caused electricity to go out for days. At a number 6 spot with the Masonic Temple. Currently standing as the largest Masonic temple in the world, it also stands as one of the most haunted places in all of Michigan. The temple, designed by George D. Mason, is an imposing Gothic structure at the corner of Bagg Street, later Temple Street, and 2nd Avenue across from Cass Park. The temple has over 1,000 rooms, secret stairways, and concealed passages, but unfortunately Mason would go a little too far in this construction, where it would cause him to go bankrupt, eventually losing his wife in the process. His depression slowly slowly kicked in, and then he would jump off the roof of this temple to his death. And to this day, security guards claim to see old George's ghost climbing those steps to the rooftop. Visitors also reported many noises such as doors and windows being slammed shut. They also see moving shadows and experience cold spots all around the area, all while feeling as if they're being watched by something. Right in the hub of our list, we have the Michigan Triangle. Well, guess Michigan has their own version of Bermuda's Devil Triangle, and it contains just as much unexplained phenomena as Bermuda. The triangle goes from Manawak, Wisconsin to Ludington to Benton Harbor in Michigan. It was in early spring 1937 when Captain Donner was just managing his freighter ship called the O.S. McFarland through these icy waters. He was so tired, so he decided to go to sleep and asked for one of the crewmates to wake him up when they approached shore. As they did, they noticed his room was locked, so they looked around, but nothing. They then kicked the door down and found that he vanished with no signs whatsoever. Now the triangle claims the lives of many ships and planes just like Bermuda. People have also cited the O.S. McFarland, but as they try to get a closer look, it disappears into the waters. An odd thing about this place is when divers go to check the wreckages of ships and planes, they notice that everything is still intact, including the bodies of the deceased and the ship as a whole. This is by far the scariest triangle because there is no way around it other than land. So basically, there's no point in traveling in Michigan's Great Lakes. At our number 4 spot is Hell's Bridge. Back in the early 1900s, an old deranged man named Elias Friss led a group of kids to the bridge and proceeded to murder each and every single one of them, slowly throwing them into the river below. Eventually, he was caught and hung by the towns. Before he passed away, he made a confession claiming that he did this because he was possessed by the devil and they told him to do it. To this day, a lot of visitors to the bridge hear the screams and the cries from the children just before they pass away. People have also said that when they get home from this place, they find bruises on their body as if someone was reaching out to grab them or hit them. The worst part is that if you walk on this bridge at night, you can feel hands below you as if they're grabbing you from the river below. And at the end of the bridge, you might encounter Elias as a dark figure with glowing eyes, so you won't miss him in the dead of night. In more lesser known news, apparently you're able to sell your soul to the devil by meeting the devil in the middle of this bridge. I mean, it's called Hell's Bridge. What else did we expect? At our number 3 spot, we have the Dogman. The Dogman is described as a 7-foot tall, amber-eyed, bipedal, canine-like creature, and he has the head of a dog with the body and torso of a human. Ever since its original sighting in 1887, many more sightings were spotted all over Michigan. It's primarily spotted in the northwestern quadrant of the Lower Peninsula. Back to its original sighting back in 1887. This is when the Dogman was discovered by 2 lumberjacks who saw this creature in the distance. Things got a little more concerning when in 1937, Robert Forney was attacked by 5 wild dogs, describing that of one of the dogs allegedly stood up like a bipedal and was significantly larger than all the other dogs. This legend got more popular when disc jockey Steve Cook recorded a song called The Legend, which describes the Michigan's Dogman. Although the artist claims it was made for an April Fool's joke, this kickstarted the entire legend, and sightings of the Dogman would only rise after the song was released. At a number 2 spot with Melonhead. Locals' fear of humanoids called the Melonheads. First theorized in the 1970s, Melonheads are said to be completely bald with misshapen bulbous heads, deformed arms and legs, teeth like daggers, and luminous red eyes. Legend goes that Melonheads reside around Felt Mansion, which is home to Dora Felt, who is an American inventor. The Melonheads were said to be the children suffering from hydrocephalus, which causes your head to expand in some cases. They were located at the Junction Insane Asylum near the home, and it's said that they endured months and months of abuse, and that one day they decided to escape and run into the forests of Michigan, where they became animal-like and very feral. Many of these Melonheads are said to be looking for the doctor who failed to care for them in order to take his life. At a number 1 spot, we have Eloy Psychiatric Hospital. Located in Westland, Michigan, it was named after Detroit's postmaster Elois Davik. In 1839, it started as a poorhouse and a farm where the poor, the sick, and the needy would go for shelter and work. As time went on, the poorhouse transitioned into a psychiatric asylum and hospital. The buildings were self-sufficient, even having their own police. They were even one of the first hospitals in the world to use x-rays for diagnosis, so at least one good thing came out of here. At its peak, the place housed over 10,000 patients and over 2,000 staff members. After its closure in 1984, the hospital's abandoned grounds are said to have a few patients still left inside of it. Ghost patients, that is. There have been reports of people finding medical waste and other strange items. Some have reported finding jars containing human body parts, as well as documents outlining strange medical procedures.